In the Canadian Rockies stands a grand hotel. From the outside, it's a masterpiece of luxury. Towering walls, golden chandeliers, and endless hallways that echo with laughter and music. But behind its elegance lurks a story the staff will never tell you. A story about a room that doesn't appear on any map. Room 873. They say decades ago, a wealthy family checked in for a holiday. Husband, wife, and their little girl. Guests remember hearing arguments behind the door late at night, and then silence. The next morning, housekeeping entered to find a nightmare. Blood painted the walls, the carpet soaked red. The family was gone, but their screams lingered. The hotel sealed the room immediately. Bricks covered the doorway. Officially, it doesn't exist. But guests still talk. They swear that if you walk down that hallway at night, you'll feel a draft of cold air, right where room 870.
Some visitors claim they've seen a little girl's handprint appear on the mirrors of nearby rooms, tiny fingerprints that no amount of cleaning can erase. Others wake up at 3 a.m. to the sound of knocking coming from inside the wall. And when they call the front desk, the staff simply replies, "There is no room 873. Construction crews who tried to renovate the wing reported tools vanishing overnight, lights cutting out, and sudden scratches appearing on their arms. A few even refused to go back, saying they heard whispers calling their names in the empty corridor. To this day, the hotel denies everything, but if you visit, count the doors carefully. You'll see 871, 872, and then suddenly, 874. The missing number is no accident. The truth is hidden behind plaster and paint. The question is, would you dare press your ear to the wall of room 873? And if you did, what would you hear?
It was supposed to be a simple camping trip. A group of college friends hiked deep into the Oregon forest, away from the noise of the city. The air smelled of pine and rain-soaked earth, and laughter echoed between the trees as they pitched their tents. For hours, the night felt safe. Just a fire crackling, marshmallows roasting, stories being told. But past midnight, the forest began to change. The firelight flickered strangely, the woods grew eerily silent, and a cold wind swept through the camp. One of the friends, Jason, noticed something, or rather someone, standing just beyond the tree line. A tall, motionless silhouette, watching.
At first, they thought it was a lost hiker. Jason called out. No answer. The figure didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there, half hidden by the trees. The longer they stared, the more wrong it looked. Too tall. Its arms hanging too low, almost brushing the ground. When one of them shined a flashlight in its direction, the figure was gone. Not walked away. Gone. Like it melted into the dark. The group tried to laugh it off, but unease settled in. Hours later, as they tried to sleep, the sound started. Crunching leaves, slow, heavy footsteps circling the tents. Then, scratching. Long, deliberate claws, dragging against the canvas.
Terrified, they whispered to each other, debating whether to run or stay. Suddenly, the scratching stopped. Silence swallowed the camp. Jason unzipped his tent just a fraction to peek outside and froze. Two glowing eyes stared back at him from the darkness, unblinking, inches away. He couldn't scream, couldn't move, The eyes didn't belong to any animal he knew. They were human-shaped, but wrong, predatory, intelligent. And then, in a voice that wasn't a voice at all, but a rasp that scraped inside his skull, it whispered his name.
By dawn, the creature was gone. The friends packed up in silence, pale and shaken. None of them spoke of what they'd seen, not to each other, not to anyone. But weeks later, Jason woke in the middle of the night in his dorm room. The window was open, the air was cold, and in the reflection of the glass, two glowing eyes stared back.
Deep in the remote wilderness of the American Midwest, a seasoned hunter set out before dawn. For him, the forest was a second home. The crisp air, the sound of leaves crunching underfoot, the thrill of tracking game. He carried his rifle and a sense of calm, expecting just another quiet morning in nature. But the forest has a way of hiding secrets. Secrets you're never supposed to find.
After hours of silence, he stumbled upon a clearing. At first, it looked like nothing more than a tangle of branches and moss. But then, he froze. In front of him, mounted neatly on a tree stump, was a skull. Not of a deer, not of a bear, but unmistakably human. The bone was weathered, bleached white by years of exposure. Empty eye sockets stared back at him, as if daring him to move closer. Next to the skull lay the antlers of a massive buck, arranged deliberately, almost like an offering. It wasn't nature that placed them there. It was ritual. Someone or something. The hunter's instincts screamed at him to leave, but curiosity pinned him to the spot. He scanned the tree line. Silence. Not a single bird. No rustling leaves. The forest had gone dead quiet, like it was holding its breath. And then, faintly, he heard it. Twigs snapping. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Someone was out there, circling. Heart pounding, he gripped his rifle tighter. Whoever created this grisly shrine might still be watching.
The hunter never told anyone exactly what happened next. Some say he ran, never looking back. Others whisper he stayed frozen, waiting until the presence in the woods simply vanished. But one thing is certain. When he returned with the authorities, the skull and antlers were gone. The clearing was empty, as if nothing had ever been there. To this day, the hunter refuses to step foot in those woods again. He claims the forest marked him that morning, and that somewhere, deep among the trees, someone is still building their macabre trophies, waiting for the next curious soul to wander too close. In the heart of the Amazon rainforest lies a secret no map dares to mark. For centuries, explorers whispered of a lost colony, a place where hundreds of settlers vanished without a trace. Some called it the City of the Dead, others the Gate to Hell. It began with a group of Europeans in the 1600s who marched into the jungle searching for gold and eternal glory. They built a small settlement deep inside the forest, convinced they had discovered paradise. The earth was fertile, the rivers shimmered, and the jungle sang at night with the calls of unseen creatures. But paradise has teeth. Soon, strange things started happening. Hunters disappeared into the trees, never to return. Fires broke out in the middle of the night with no cause, and every morning more and more bodies were found, eyes wide open, mouths frozen in silent screams. Survivors swore they heard voices in the trees, whispers in languages no human should understand. But the worst part? The jungle itself seemed alive, closing in tighter and tighter around the colony, as if it wanted to swallow them. By the time the next expedition arrived years later, the colony was gone. Entire houses rotted, food still laid out on wooden tables, but no people remained. Not a single body. It was as if they had stepped into thin air. Some explorers reported seeing shadows darting between the trees, while others claimed they heard the distant cries of children echoing from nowhere. Local tribes warned outsiders never to enter that part of the forest, calling it cursed land. They believed a doorway had opened there, a passage to another world, one not meant for human eyes. And anyone who dared live on that soil would be claimed by it. Even today, satellite images show a patch of the jungle where no village or camp will stand. Every attempt to build there ends in disaster. Workers vanish, equipment breaks, and the silence of the forest returns to smother everything. So the question remains, did the jungle take them? Or did they walk willingly through a gate that should never have been opened?
In a quiet town in Pennsylvania, there was a house no one dared to enter. Its windows were always dark, its paint peeling, its porch sagging under years of silence. Locals whispered about it, how every tenant who moved in never lasted more than a week. Some left in the middle of the night, others were never seen again. One night, a group of thrill-seeking teenagers decided to test the legend. They'd film themselves spending a night inside for their YouTube channel. Just a dare, just another ghost story to prove wrong. They laughed as they pushed open the heavy wooden door, their flashlights cutting through the dust. The air inside was cold, unnaturally cold, and it smelled of damp earth and something metallic like rust or blood.
They chose the living room as their base camp, set up cameras, cracked jokes, tried to act brave. But the cameras began to glitch, distorted images, static-filled audio. At 2 a.m., one of them, Sarah, noticed a door at the end of the hallway, a door that hadn't been there before. It was small, painted black with no handle, just a keyhole. When she leaned closer, she swore she heard breathing on the other side. Slow, ragged breaths. Then, a whisper. Not in English, not in any language she knew, but her name was clear.
Terrified, Sarah begged her friends to leave, but they laughed it off, calling it perfect content. They set up a camera facing the door, daring whatever was inside to show itself. Minutes turned to hours, just silence, until 3:33 a.m. The door creaked open by itself. The camera captured it all, a shadow crawling out, too thin, too long, its limbs bent at impossible angles. It moved like smoke, but sounded like bones snapping with every shift. The teens screamed, scattering through the house, but every hallway led them back to the same place. Back to the block. By morning, the house was quiet again. The neighbors noticed the front door wide open, the teens' camera equipment scattered on the porch. But the group was gone. Not a single trace of them inside or out. Only one thing was left, the footage. Hours of static and screams, ending with the lens pointing at the black door. Still open. Still waiting. And now anyone who dares to watch that footage says the same thing. Once the video ends, they hear a knock at their own door. Slow. Heavy. And when they look through the peephole,
they see the same black door staring back at them. In the heart of Los Angeles stands the infamous Cecil Hotel. To the casual eye, it's just another old building, tall, weathered, a relic of the past. But for those who know its history, the name Cecil sends a shiver down the spine. Suicide, murder, serial killers who once called it home. The walls of this place have absorbed decades of darkness. In 2013, a young Canadian student named Elisa Lam checked in to the Cecil, hoping for adventure in California. She was bright, curious, full of life, but just days later, she vanished without a trace. Her story would become one of the most chilling mysteries the internet has ever.
The last known footage of Elisa was captured by the hotel's security camera in the elevator. What should have been a simple, ordinary video turned into a nightmare watched by millions. Elisa steps inside, presses multiple buttons, and waits, but the elevator doesn't move. She peeks out nervously, as if someone's there. She hides in the corner, then suddenly steps out, waving her hands, moving strangely, like she's talking to someone invisible. For minutes, the elevator stays frozen, doors wide open, as if time itself had stopped. Finally, Elisa disappears from view. That was the last. Weeks later, after guests complained of foul-tasting water and low pressure in their taps, maintenance workers climbed to the roof. There, inside a massive water tank, they made a horrifying discovery. Elisa's body, floating in the very water hundreds of guests had been drinking from. But the question remains, how did she get there? The tank was locked. The hatch was heavy. The roof was secured. Did she climb in herself? Was she pushed? Or was something darker at play? Something that has haunted the Cecil.
Police ruled it an accident. They claimed Elisa suffered from mental health issues and drowned. But skeptics point to the strange behavior in the elevator, the impossible logistics of entering the tank, and the hotel's cursed history. To this day, no explanation satisfies the unease. People whisper that the Cecil Hotel doesn't just attract tragedy, it creates it. And if you ever walk past that building at night, some say you can still hear faint splashes echoing from above, as if the water remembers.
It was November 18th, 1978, a humid, suffocating morning deep inside the jungles of Guyana. The air smelled of wet earth and rotting leaves. Dozens of American soldiers and local officers hacked their way through the vines, searching for a place that had almost become a myth: Jonestown. Jonestown wasn't on any tourist map. It wasn't a village you could just stumble upon. It was a hidden settlement built by Jim Jones, the charismatic yet deeply disturbed leader of the People's Temple cult. Hundreds of Americans had followed him into the jungle, believing they were escaping the corruption of modern society, but what they found instead was hell disguised as paradise. As the soldiers entered the clearing, the first thing they noticed was the silence. No children laughing, no voices, only the buzz of flies, millions of them. Then the smell hit them, a stench so strong it clawed at their throats. And when they stepped further inside, their boots sank into the soft earth, soaked with something dark. What they saw next would haunt them forever. Bodies. Hundreds of them. Men, women, children. Some sprawled across the ground, others slumped against each other, cups still clutched in their hands. In total, 918 people were dead, an entire community wiped out.
At the center of it all was Jim Jones. His followers had believed his words, trusted his promises of a better life. But when government officials began closing in, Jones made a chilling decision. He ordered a revolutionary suicide. Large vats of a flavored drink laced with cyanide were passed around. Parents gave it to their children first. Many drank willingly, convinced it was the only way to stay free. But others were forced. Guards with guns stood watch, making sure no one resisted. Screams echoed through the night as poison burned through their veins. Jones himself was later found with a gunshot wound to the head. But the mystery remains. Did he pull the trigger, or did someone else end it for him? Jonestown wasn't just a tragedy, it was one of the largest mass deaths in modern history. And to this day, if you travel deep into that jungle, the ground still remembers. The soil is heavy. The silence is unnatural. And some say, at night, if you listen closely, you can still hear the faint cries of children carried through the trees.